Good morning. This is Ricky with Wellness Wednesdays, and today I will be chatting with Kate Gunderson on endurance. The endurance needed to train for the Boston Marathon and in training astronauts and training to become an astronaut at NASA Johnson Space Center, as well as for love. I will be introducing Kate now. So Kate Gunderson is a mechanical and aerospace engineer working at NASA Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. The aircraft operations engineering branch she works in maintains and performs upgrades to the center's fleet of more than 20 aircraft supporting various astronaut training activities and airborne science missions that fly all over the world. Kate holds a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from RIT in Rochester, New York, and a master's in aerospace engineering, specializing in structures from Georgia Tech. During college, Kate completed several internships and co-ops, which she highly encourages all students to participate in, believing that they are the key to scoring her dream job at NASA so early on. Her work assignments included several with GE Aviation and NASA's Johnson Space Center, as well as an internship with the United States House of Rep Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. Kate was born and raised in West Fargo, North Dakota, a conservative town where many of her classmates stayed in-state to attend college. Although she's really proud of her hometown, Kate always had a nagging feeling that there was more for her somewhere else. She talked early on, starting in the second grade, and often about her desire to work at NASA and become an astronaut one day. Although many of her classmates were critical, she never gave up on her dream. Outside of engineering, Kate is a fitness enthusiast who enjoys weightlifting and running. She also has a passion for increasing female participation in engineering and recently started a blog aimed at empowering women to confidently thrive in STEM fields. And so I also wanted to really introduce why I do these chats every 2 weeks, because really it is my deepest belief that self-care in the form of equipping oneself with the right personal and professional development tools is anything but indulgent. Self-care involves prioritizing one's well-being. It is a comprehensive concept which, if practiced correctly, enhances our relationship with ourselves, others, and our immediate environment. With my new series, I hope to challenge the norm with the audacious notion that to succeed, you have to take utmost care of yourself, intellectually, socially, spiritually, and physically first, before anything else, particularly for amongst us minorities. And with that, I will be adding Kate on. Good morning. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for being here, Kate. It is so exciting. I absolutely love this topic, and your job is so incredibly cool. Thank you so much for giving me your time this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy to do it, and can't wait.
So I kind of officially introduced you with your bio, but I would love for you to tell me something about yourself that someone wouldn't necessarily know by just reading your bio, like in a sentence, something either quirky or interesting or something that is very, very you.
Oh gosh. Well, I was immediately going to tell you about how I applied to I applied to a NASA internship, like to 15 different opportunities, and was not denied, but like I never heard back on any of them before I got my official like pathways internship.
And that's so
So I
important
was,
to know. No, that's
yeah.
still really important to know, because here I am kind of like introducing you as someone that flies on all these cool missions across the world. And you get to interact with astronauts and you want to become one, but it's so important to recognize that you had applied a bunch of times, didn't get it a bunch of times, but we're still here.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's really important that we don't appear as though we're these perfect people who everything fell into place so easily, because I think everyone has their struggles, and background story that maybe everybody doesn't see, that kind of the challenges that you overcome to get to where you are. So
yeah,
I'd like to
absolutely.
share that.
And so I kind of wanted to unpack really, so we know that you're in aerospace and you did mechanical and then aerospace with the focus on structures. But I was curious about the specific way in which you wanted your work in STEM to make a difference in the world.
Well, that for me all started when, because I went into engineering not really knowing what engineers did, but I also didn't grow up knowing that or understanding that there was this gender disparity or just this big disparity in STEM between the percentages of men and women in STEM and in STEM fields. And so I went into it blindly, having, my parents were so supportive. I had no idea that I might be treated differently. And so I went into it not knowing that, you know, there would be very few females. And so I had somewhat of a hard time making female friends because there just weren't that many of us. And then I'm also super bubbly and outgoing, and maybe that's not like your stereotypical engineer. And so I just wanted to create the sense of community after going through all of it that I didn't feel like I had the whole time. I mean, there were people obviously there that supported me and that really helped me, but I didn't have like this huge network of women that I saw succeeding and that I could help me see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I wanted to use my experience to kind of make things better for other people.
I love that. And my specific question in unpacking that is how's your combination of degrees and then internships and now finally your full-time position kind of helped you achieve that really in creating that community in those spaces? Like,
okay, I think I get what you're getting at. You know, honestly, the internships that I did as an undergrad really changed my life, and that's why I'm such an advocate for them, because I think like the workforce is, at least for me, has been a lot, yeah, there's still this disparity, but it was a lot more representative of what you should expect. Like, there were women succeeding and in high leadership roles. My boss is a woman, and I just saw exactly what I wanted to in terms of like people I could look up to that were successful and that I could see myself in. And there's obviously still work to do for sure, but I just think that
behavior for
what?
you, they modeled the right kind of behavior for you to be able to kind of recreate that as you leveled up in your career.
Yeah, for sure. And they weren't like in competition with me. I felt like they were always willing to mentor me or help me. And so that was really reassuring.
And did you feel the same way in Rochester and at Georgia Tech, or was there a lack of that there specifically, or was one school better than the other at like creating that community?
I specifically went to Georgia Tech in one way. I mean, it's a incredibly great school, but in one way I sought them out because they had like the highest percentage of women in engineering of any school in the country. And so I was super impressed by that. And RIT did have a women in engineering group specifically aimed at like creating that community, but I just didn't feel it the same way. Like I don't know if it was a matter of just in grad school, the professors understood that you were intelligent by the time you got there, or if it was just that RIT, I don't want to bash, but they didn't do as great of a job. I did have a female advisor though at RIT that I can't say enough great things about, because she honestly, there were several people there, including men, who really ended up being mentors for me that really encouraged me and were there for me anytime I had a complaint or a struggle. And so, I mean, there were people at everything, but Georgia Tech was incredible, in my opinion.
Getting that, I love that. And so I was really happy unpacking kind of like that first question, and so I'd love to jump in to the specific topic at hand, which today's endurance. And I wanted to first begin with endurance when it comes to running marathons. And I love introducing you as someone in STEM, someone at NASA, someone aspiring to be an astronaut, and then taking a left turn, going into this whole other side of you. But I would love if you could first tell me a little bit about qualifying for Boston while you were full-time at NASA, and then you're part-time full content creator. So I was curious what sort of schedule you followed to really make sure you could qualify and really show up for all of the things in your life.
Yeah, for sure. So I didn't start out as a runner. I kind of started running when I was in ROTC for a little while in undergrad, and I sort of started running, but I didn't really start big time running until I think it was grad school. And it really became this place for me to go and escape from all the stress and anxiety that school can cause.
At Georgia Tech?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a reason they say I got out, because it's hard, and it's good that's hard because the things worth having in life are hard, which kind of goes into running too. I enjoy the challenge of doing things that are hard and the sense of accomplishment after you do that. But I really started running in grad school, and I always get my run in first thing in the morning, because if I don't, it just ruins my day. So
yeah. Did you run this morning?
I did, which is one
okay,
of your school lists. Yeah, I got up at 4:45. I'm kind of crazy that way. Like, I didn't ever think of myself as a morning person. And then I lived with somebody in grad school, and she was like, "You're really a morning person." And I started thinking, I have become a morning person, but I like it that way. I feel like it rejuvenates me. And anyway, I don't know if I'm really answering your question. I'm kind of getting off on a tangent, but I really enjoy the discipline it requires, and it is time consuming. So the way I just make sure I fit it in is I do it first thing in the morning. Then there were times before I started doing that where people would have happy hours, or, hey, want to do this after work, or can you help me with this? Then you miss out on that opportunity. So for me, I had to make it a priority, and that meant scheduling it in terms of like doing it first thing in the morning so that nothing else could get in the way of that.
And could you talk a little bit about, what would happen if you had to say no to like a work networking opportunity, or just a time to hang out and like go to bed early so that you could wake up at 4:45 to train?
I have done that a lot, and in some ways that can jeopardize friendships, especially at our age. So it's just been kind of me balancing everything and trying to just find other ways to be a good friend to people without maybe like going out to the bar on a Friday night, or I pick one weekend night, like I'll take off Saturday, but then Sunday I run. So I have to balance like those priorities again, and then set healthy boundaries so that I'm not dying by getting 2 hours of sleep or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's all about priorities and setting priorities.
And so I think what's interesting is when someone's like, I want to say like past 25, or like closer to 30 and has been out of school for a little bit, it's really easy to say, okay, like maybe I live alone, or I live with people who share similar priorities. It's easy for me to tell my friends that, I have this schedule and going out right now does not work for me. But I was wondering if, and this is for anyone who is listening right now who's taking notes, or will listen to this later as they're working to take notes, could we do like a little conversation where I'm like, hey, Kate, do you want to come out to the bar tonight? And then could you help anyone listening right now who is either a freshman or a sophomore, or just in in undergrad or even in high school, because I have a couple of high school viewers right now, help them phrase, I'm not going to hang out, or I'm not going to go on that Zoom because we're in COVID, or could you help me phrase that? So if I'm like, hey, Kate, can you hang out with me 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. I haven't seen you in ages, and I would love to do a Zoom game party.
Yeah, so I would say hey, I really miss you. I'd love to hang out. How about I pop on for an hour or two because like you're a great friend to me and I want to make you a priority, but I also have this other goal that I have in the future, and if I don't work towards it, like I feel like I won't be prepared. So like just hopefully that they would be understanding that you want to make them a priority, but you have this other goal that you're trying to accomplish, and like, hey, I got to get up early and I'll still come and like have fun for a couple hours, but I got to go do this thing in the morning. So how about we kind of compromise, and then maybe we could like grab a coffee after I'm done with my run later in the morning or something.
No, I love that. Yeah. And they're probably going to say, well, actually, I don't wake up even at 7 a.m. So I think I'm going to have to skip coffee.
Yeah.
No, I love that. I think that was really helpful because I know I personally really struggled with setting boundaries and prioritizing myself when it came to these goals. I think a couple of years ago, it was hard for me to speak to these goals. It was hard for me to say, to say something like, oh, I actually want to qualify for Boston, because I felt like the response would be, oh, who do you think you are to think that you can qualify for Boston, right? And that is so absurd. And
I thought that about myself, though. When I first said it like I joined a new running club, and I remember introducing myself, and they wanted to know what one of my goals was, and I said, I hope to maybe, hopefully qualify for the Boston Marathon this year. And I felt like such a fraud saying that, because I was like, who do I think I am that I could qualify for Boston? And I did it that year. And
yeah, and it's not about like imposter syndrome. It's just about like being unsure of like trusting like certain people around you who don't think, like, even in the running club, if someone else doesn't think that they can qualify and you really in your heart believe that you can, it's almost like you don't want any like negative energy surrounding that. So this was really helpful, and I can kind of take what you shared and make it a little quote so that people have it, so that they can kind of have something to look to if they're trying to prioritize themselves, but then also let their friend hangout plans down a little bit easy.
well, you have to look after yourself too, because you can't treat yourself worse than you would like a friend. Like I remember like hearing once about somebody talking badly about themselves to their hairdresser or something, and their hairdresser said, I want you to stop talking badly about my friend. It's like, the way you talk about yourself is so important, and you shouldn't treat yourself any less than you would your best friend.
Absolutely. Okay, so my next question is, when it comes to endurance training specifically, can you tell me a little bit about what you've learned from it and how that has spilled into other areas of your life?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things I've learned is that the big things and the difficult things and the things worth having in life don't come overnight. They take a lot of patience, preparation, dedication, and discipline. And you just really have to, you have to put in the work. There's no way around it. It might kind of suck, and it's okay to acknowledge that things suck, and it's okay to embrace it. And I think there's a lot to be said about having the ability to embrace difficult things. And honestly, like everything I do in my life, well, not probably everything, but I try to really tackle challenges, things that are difficult and that I perceive as difficult, because I think that is the best way to truly grow and to make sure that you're still growing. I think the worst thing that you can do for yourself is become complacent and just kind of floating around in life, not really having a plan for where you don't always have to have a plan for where you're going to end up, but I think it's important to kind of have an idea, like a vague image in your mind of like the winding road and maybe one little next step. And it's okay if you lose track of that, but you should try to get back on the trail at some point and embrace the suck.
Yeah, I as part of this coaching program that I do, something that they say is you just need the direction. Sorry, you just need the destination in the GPS. Don't worry about the directions. Like, don't worry about those specific steps, because those might look different for you, but just put the destination in so that you know what you're looking at. Like the GPS knows where to go. Don't worry about what those steps are. And I love that.
Because you can take detours.
Exactly, yeah. And so because if you focus on the directions, then you're acutely aware of the detours. Like even when you think of like when you're driving, you just get like really annoyed or irritated if the GPS does something different from what you thought. And so like, yeah, embrace the suck, embrace the detours, let the GPS like do its thing. Just like really focus on what you want the destination to be. Because oftentimes that's like something you can see, unless it's like something that hasn't been invented yet or created yet in the world. And you're trying to go after that, which is really cool. Okay, so I would love to kind of, and I hinted at this with the question before, but I know you applied you applied to the NASA astronaut program, and you went through that process, and a lot of that again is like speaking your dreams out loud and knowing that you have permission to say them out loud. And it's also a longer winded process because you know, it's like it's super selective and you might not hear back for a while, but you just keep trying. And even if you don't get selected, you just apply again. And like astronauts have done that. And so I just have the phrase, becoming an astronaut, a marathon, not a sprint, written here. And so I kind of wanted to first hear you speak to some of the tools that you used to plan out your astronaut ambitions. What are the things that you're doing now to get and keep an edge?
Ooh, that's a good one. Let's see. So I've known that I wanted to be an astronaut since about when they ask you what you want to be when you grow up in second grade. And I will be honest, like I let people try to convince me that it wasn't possible. So I grew up, and like I said,
can you tell me what age you were at? Like when did you start hearing that it wasn't possible? Like when was the first time you vocalized it, and when was the first time someone said, "Are you sure?"
So I think it was second grade when I talk about it all the time, like, oh, I stood in the driveway with my dad and I looked up at the night sky, and like I was just so fascinated by the vastness of the universe and like the human curiosity that it requires to kind of chase the unknown. But the point in which I remember, okay, so we had this thing where I vocalized that I wanted to be an astronaut, and then I remember like talking endlessly about it. Like I never stopped talking about it. But then I remember in high school, especially like physics class, I think it was, where like it wasn't teachers, it was students that were like, NASA shut down, like you'll never work at NASA and like all this stuff, and all I could talk about was how I wanted to work at NASA.
That's so crazy. And I think about this all the time, where if someone else doesn't believe that they can have the dream that you want, sometimes their reaction to it, because of the discomfort of the largeness of your dream, is, oh, I'm gonna shut that shit down. Like, I can't have it. I don't want you to think you can have it either, because you thinking you can have it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and so I remember like I didn't even think to go on the internet and like, because the whole thing was that the space shuttle program was kind of coming to a close. But for some reason, I was just like, oh, I guess NASA shut down. But like, also at the same time, I didn't believe it at all. I just like let it kind of roll off my back. And I was like, so when it came time to go to college, I was like, I don't know, like, I want to work in mission control. What do those people do? So, or have degrees in. So I Googled like, what do they have degrees in, and they were all engineers, and I was like, I don't know what engineers do, but I guess I'm going to be one. So I applied to engineering programs just solely because the idea of working for NASA, I wanted that, and I wasn't going to let anyone stop me. Whether or not they claimed it was shut down, I was like, I don't know, but I'm going to be an engineer. And it's just crazy to me. Like it makes me like crazy, because the ease at which it fell into place for me in college, not ease, because I told you like I applied 15 different internships, but the fact that like it happened so early on for me just like makes me realize that like you just have to let those people just push them to the side, because now I have people messaging me from high school who are like, you've been talking about working for NASA your whole life. Like, it's so amazing that you've done it. And they weren't like necessarily.
Oh, remember when you told me that NASA was shut down?
I know. I'm like, and the people, I mean, they're not like necessarily the haters, but it's just cool to show people that like, you know, your perception of the world isn't necessarily the way that it is. And then I remember talking about like on my internship on the Hill, one of the staffers asked me what I wanted to be, like what I ultimately my goal was, and I said, well, I want to be an astronaut. And I kind of chuckled, and he was like, why would you like giggle about that, like, or laugh about that? Like, that's a very real possibility. Like, you could be an astronaut one day. And I like will never forget that moment, because I realized like I will never again like discredit myself by laughing about my big dream, because the fact that I even got to NASA and all that so early on is like mind-boggling to me. So I just think it's important to really believe in yourself and not discredit yourself, because you know, you never know what could happen.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting because some of the resistance that often comes up when we're chasing these things is often like internal. Like, we create our own mental blockage. We dismiss our own selves before we get to like program the things into the GPS to tell it where to go. It's almost like, if we're following the same analogy, like we're in the car and we're making all the wrong turns because we almost don't want to get to the final destination. It's like if you're going to like a family member's house that you like don't want to go to because it like scares you, but like that family member is gonna like unlock everything for you. I don't know.
Defense mechanism, I think. Yeah. Like, I don't want to fail, but I'm just gonna like force myself to fail. Yeah.
So if you have the book by astronaut Scott Kelly with you, perfect, you have it with you. Okay.
Up on my shelf.
I wanted to kind of talk about what you thought of it, and it's interesting because not only do you have a job where you're training, like you're working on the things that train astronauts, but then you're also training to be one, which means that this book almost acts as like a tool or a handbook. And there's so many handbooks of sorts written by astronauts, but I know you have this up on your little bookshelf, and I was curious if you could share just what you've personally taken away from it and any specific quotes that you love. Again, I'm envisioning someone listening to this in the future with it like on their screen or while they're like on a walk somewhere. If you could kind of tell me, what you loved most, what you took away.
Yeah, so it was funny because I took it down after having it up on the shelf for a while, and I have this bookmark in here. And so I opened it up and I was like, I wonder what I thought was so great about this one page. And it was about how he talked about how when he was a kid, he had this reoccurring daydream of being confined to a small space. And I love that, and it gives me goosebumps because...
Me too. I literally, I have like full body. Yeah.
I love that he said that he had this dream of being in a confined space, and he said something about that small space. The sense that I was doing something challenging just by living there was appealing to me. I felt I was where I belonged. And like, that's what I was talking about at the very beginning of this, is like doing the challenging things. Like, I full-heartedly embrace that, and like it makes me feel so good to do the challenging things, because I know that at the end of the day I did something worthwhile that day, whether it was like something small just for myself or something bigger. But that, and then he talks about like how and then he goes on to talk about like the dream, and then about his parents taking him down to watch the moon landing, the men walking on the moon for the first time. And he says he was a reckless child, like doing all these, he always wanted to do something like crazy and daredevil-y. And he said, if you were doing something safe, something you already knew could be done, you were wasting time. And I just love that. And anyway, the whole book is just great. And he talks about, kind of like how I said, there's something to be said about embracing difficulty, because he talks all the time in the book about how it sucked. I mean, it's not fun to go be trapped in a, you know, the space station's like the size of a 6-bedroom house or whatever they say, but that's not, after a year of being trapped in your house, just like with COVID, it's not fun. Like, it is mentally challenging. And, but he embraced it, and he embraced the challenge, and, you know, he's better for it, and we're all better for it because we learned so much from the science that we got. So, and that we're still getting.
Absolutely love that. Okay, so let me see. I think I have two more questions for you just about becoming an astronaut, which is, how do you maintain your patience when so much feels rooted in that one goal? And in what ways has running helped in cultivating patience?
Mm. The way that running has cultivated patience is that you never know if you're going to have a good run. So much of running is out of your control. Like, it's all up to your body, really, and the weather and what you ate, and if you got enough sleep. And like, you could have the best running day of your life on the last training run before a marathon, and then you could go and have a marathon where you totally flop. You can't even finish the race. You get hurt or whatever, and you have to have patience with yourself and pick yourself back up, or you'll never run another race. And it's the same thing in life. If you fall down or something doesn't go your way, you have to have the patience to, with yourself and the world, to pick yourself back up and keep moving forward. And the astronaut goal for me, I've come to learn that you can't hang your hopes on one single goal, especially one that is so few people become astronauts. And like, if I never become one, I am so happy with the trajectory of my life so far that, yeah, there will be disappointment, but I will be fulfilled in other ways. And, you know, I won't feel like my life was for nothing, you know? And so anyway, patience in life, in running and everything.
I love that. And so I think one of the questions that I had pertaining to running again and just wrapping this whole thing up is specific things that you use that make your running journey smoother, better, like any tools you use. I know you like post about your Fitbit or protein pancakes that you have after, but anything that you kind of want to plug in.
I can't live without my running watch. I think, like, I don't know how people used to run, because it's so funny. We'll go to the track or go on a run, and we'll be like, this morning, I was like done with my warm up, and I accidentally stopped my watch and like saved it. Or like, once I was once on like a 15-mile run, and I like took a break, and I I deleted the whole thing on my watch, and I was like, no. And you act like it's the end of the world, but I'm like, how did people ever live without these? Like, and you didn't know what your pace was. You had to like time it on, you know, like this old school watch. But I love my Garmin watch, and it's nice because you don't have to have your phone with you because it has GPS. What else do I use? I don't know. Like, I used to run half marathons without water. I don't know how I did it. So now I have like this like awesome water bottle thing that I can carry like on hot summer days, or like a Camelback. But yeah, just like the things that make running easier. But yeah, and
I can
obviously
kind of compile that later. As I shared, I could like, yeah, write to you and get that later.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last thing was really inspired by a post that you shared on personal versus professional success. And my phrase here is finding and keeping love, a marathon, not a sprint. And yeah, I think all my notes say running marathons, a literal marathon, not a sprint. Becoming an astronaut, a marathon, not a sprint. Finding and keeping love, a marathon, not a sprint. And I love how we took a left turn, and now we're like taking a sharp left, going in a totally different direction. But I feel like it's pulling on those same values. And so I was wondering if you could kind of speak to that post a little bit, emphasizing how accomplishing some personal goals can feel more like a marathon. And I particularly love the quote, "You will have it all when the time is right." Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so because our society places so much pressure, especially on women, to have this timeline of when we get married, meet somebody, get married, and have kids, I put so much pressure on myself growing up, and even I still do it now. I see everybody getting engaged and so happy and like moving on with their lives in that capacity, and I get so frustrated with myself, and I'm like, people tell me I have all this stuff, but I feel like I don't have anyone to share it with, or just like placing so much pressure on that aspect. And I've really learned, I think a lot of it comes with just being more comfortable being alone and being with myself. But yeah, I tried to tune out that, like, this timeline that somebody else has put on my life. And I just tell myself, like, it'll happen when it's meant to happen. And, I'm not defined by my relationship with someone else, who I don't even know, because I don't know who my future husband will be. But like somebody else doesn't make me complete right now. And that's cool. Like, I should be happy with who I am first. And so, yeah, it's a marathon. Like, I'm still waiting for my Prince Charming to come along. So.
And I love how all of this kind of ties back into patience, like patience for running, patience in filling out the astronaut application and doing all the things that like give you an edge. And then also, yeah, just patience in finding that person. And I loved all your responses. I have two last questions for you. So the first one is, could you tell me a little bit about your morning or night routine and what helps you bounce back when you fall off track?
Yeah. My morning routine is always, I'm very much a regimented person, I guess I've come to know. Like, I wake up, I have to brush my teeth before I do anything, and I wash my face. And then I go work out and, whatever. And the same thing at night. Like, I have to wash my face and brush my teeth. I have this very much routine where it's kind of like 20 or 30 minutes where I'm just like not really thinking, but I'm just spending time alone. And I think it's really important. And to say, I don't know if I really fall off. I fall off maybe like working out a couple, like, especially with this Texas crazy weather and then like being quarantined and like all that. So when I need to like refocus, I usually, weirdly, I have to like start on a Monday usually. But I was like, okay, next Monday, I'm going to start doing this again. And like, you don't have to like start big again. You can just like, okay, I'm going to go run a few miles, or I'm going to journal today, which I have not been good about this year, like I said I would. But yeah, just like kind of just telling yourself, like making a commitment to yourself and sticking to it. Just like one little step at a time.
And I never shared that I was going to ask you this, but I still will because I feel like it could be applicable here. But like I shared, you interact with astronauts at NASA Space Center and other people who train them. What are their morning routines like, and do you feel like they make time for themselves? And what is the value in that?
Ooh, I don't know that I know like any astronauts personally enough to know what their morning routine is, but I think that a lot of astronauts are very like, I don't want to say regimented. I think they do things with purpose, probably. There's a reason they've been so successful. And I always think about that YouTube video of the naval officer who talks about the importance of fixing your bed in the morning, which I do, by the way, every morning.
I
Even
love
when I
that.
wake up.
Yes, yeah.
Even when I wake
So,
up at like
for anyone that like doesn't know about that video, can you speak to that very briefly?
Yeah, so even when I wake up at 4 a.m, I fix my bed. So yeah, he talks about how they're like, people who fix their beds are often successful, and it's because at the end of the day, no matter how much you failed or how little you accomplished, you get home and you go to your bed to get into bed, and you see that it's fixed, and you say, okay, well, I accomplished something today. It's like, yeah, no matter what your day has, you've done something, maybe not worthwhile, but you've done something with purpose, and yeah, that's the gist of it, I guess. It's a really great, compelling video.
No, I love that. And my question was, oh, okay. So my last question. So my last question is, what does wellness mean to you?
Ooh. Um, Wellness, I think of personal wellness of like taking care of yourself and setting healthy boundaries and making yourself a priority. I think like even when you have a partner, you need to prioritize. You know, you're prioritizing two people, but you always also need to think about prioritizing yourself because if you're unhappy, anybody around you is going to be a little bit more unhappy. Like no matter what, like your mood affects everyone else around you, and so wellness to me is like looking after yourself, and then as a result, you're able to like spread that to other people.
And why do you think that practicing wellness can help you ultimately become an astronaut? No guarantees, but why do you think it gets you a little bit closer?
Um, I guess just the patience, the discipline, and the dedication it requires to consistently work on yourself kind of goes along with the what we talked about, the endurance of space flight and like being dedicated and disciplined to like those hard things and that goal. That's what I would say.
I love that. That's exactly what I was thinking. And I was like, I really hope like everyone in the audience gets it. I really hope that everyone listening gets why we're talking about this. Um, those were really all my questions, Kate. It was just so nice to talk to you. And I'm like reading all the comments. People just have the nicest things to share. So thank you so much for your time this morning.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to everyone who tuned in and who watches this later. It was so fun to talk about this. So,
And I will be posting this on my IGTV, so you can share it later on your page, and anyone else can, kind of listen to this later as well.
all right. Sounds great. Thank you so
All right.
much.
I'll be ending the live now. Bye.